Deep in the mountains of Lebanon, a temple rises from the earth. Massive, impossible, enduring. Baalbek. A name carried in stone and silence. A site so vast, so precise, it challenges everything we thought we knew. About history, about engineering, about time itself. At its heart lie 3 stones, each over 1,000 tons. Cut, transported, and placed with a level of precision no known modern crane could replicate. Who built this? Romans? Giants? Visitors from beyond the stars? And why this place? Why here, on this mountain plateau? Ancient myths speak of sky gods, of fire descending, of voices that move stone like breath. Archaeologists call it coincidence. A marvel, yes, but explainable. Still, when you walk between those stones, you feel it. Not a presence of gods or fear. Just something watching. Patient. Remembering. Waiting. Beneath the surface, more questions. Subterranean chambers that echo with silence, perfectly aligned with celestial events. Solstices, star risings, cosmic rhythms we once thought primitive. Symbols etched into stone here match glyphs found thousands of miles away, on different continents, in different epochs. Coincidence? Or memory, passed not just through time, but possibly across it? Every line, every angle, points not inward, but up, toward the stars, toward Sirius, Orion, the infinite. The site doesn't simply honor the heavens, it interacts with them. Aligns with magnetic ley lines that stretch like arteries across the earth. This isn't just a temple, it's a map, a machine, a story told in stone and silence. Not of who we are, but of who we were. Or perhaps, who was here before us. Nothing at Baalbek was left by accident. Every cut, every placement, every impossible stone, intentional. This is not a monument to faith. It's a monument to power, to knowledge once known, then lost. A legacy of minds advanced, forgotten, and possibly not human. The stones do not speak, but they remember. They wait for alignment, for the right frequency, for the right eyes to finally see. The truth was never buried beneath rubble. It was hidden in plain sight, massive, silent, patient. And now, after thousands of years, something is waking up. The question was never just who built Baalbek. Not Romans, not gods, The real question is, why? And what happens to us when we finally understand the answer? Beneath the stones of Baalbek, something waited. Not just ruins weathered by time, not just memory etched in stone, but intention. They came seeking the past, hoping to uncover history. But what they found was alive. The signals weren't lost, only buried. Dormant, not forgotten. They didn't follow echoes. They followed sound, vibration, resonance, and something ancient called them back. Not with language, but with knowing. When they touched it, it remembered them. A response not of words, but of light, of blood, of time itself bending to meet them. Baalbek was never a tomb, never a relic of the forgotten. It was a threshold, and they, without realizing, had reached its edge. The question now was no longer what waited beneath, but what might come through. They descended into impossible geometry, angles that defied physics, structures that bent space like folded cloth, shapes that shouldn't exist. And time didn't move forward. It spiraled. Was it a machine? A mind? Or a memory, replaying itself from the dawn of stars? It didn't speak. It didn't ask. It simply chose. The platform shifted beneath them. The stars above responded. And what had been buried for eons began to breathe. Above, lights formed in the sky. Not craft, but constellations reconfigured. Across oceans, across space, other signals awakened. A circuit closed. And a gate, long sealed, began to open. Some fled, their fear louder than their curiosity. But one remained, unmoving, unafraid. And in that moment, Baalbek remembered everything. The truth was never hidden. It didn't need to be. It simply waited for the right breath, the right heartbeat, the right moment of remembering. Baalbek was never a monument to be admired from afar. It was a message, not built for worship, but for memory. Memory encoded in frequency, vibrating through stone and through us. This was not stolen knowledge, not a forbidden truth. It was a gift, returned when we were ready to receive it. The stars never forgot. The earth never forgot. And neither did Baalbek. We were never strangers here. Never just the curious visitors of ruins. We were always part of the design. Not the origin, but the continuation. The living echo of something far older and still unfolding. They crossed the threshold, and time fractured. Linear reality shattered like glass. Past, present, and future collapsed into a single, endless now. Memories arrived before moments. Choices rippled backward. Footsteps echoed across timelines that had never touched. Baalbek was no longer a location. It was a sentient machine. A nexus. A cosmic migration route. Not for the body, but for the soul. They vanished into spirals of golden geometry, patterns that bent space like breath, and emerged in realms written on no map, where voices spoke without words, and cities of light remembered their names. There was no fear, only recognition, because the stars hadn't just been watching. They had been waiting. And the ones who crossed over were always meant to return. They were no longer explorers, no longer outsiders searching for answers. They were the memory. The archive had awakened, and it wasn't a structure or a database. It was them. A living record of who we once were, and who we still might become. They moved without walking. They spoke without words. They built not with tools, but with frequency, with light instead of stone, with intention instead of force. And in the pulsing heart of Baalbek, they remembered the truth. The ruins had never been broken. They were never incomplete. They were encoded. Not meant to be studied under microscopes, but to be felt. Understood. And the understanding wasn't intellectual. It was instinctual, cellular, because some knowledge doesn't pass through the mind. It awakens in the bones. They returned, but not as they were. They had crossed the threshold and been rewritten. Not by force, but by remembrance. They came back as what they were always meant to be. Carriers of light. Embodiments of the temple itself. The pulse of Baalbek now moved through their breath, their dreams, their every touch. And wherever they walked, the world stirred. The ground awakened, and the earth began to sing again. They didn't remember through study, through books or lectures. They remembered through being. Humanity had never been abandoned. It had been prepared. for this moment, for return to the stars that seeded us and the memory that never truly faded. This was never mythology, never a fantasy. It was a message, and at last it had been received. Something shifted, not in the sky, not in the stars, but deep within the earth. It began as a pulse, a slow breath beneath the sand, a low hum behind the oldest stones. And the ancient places began to answer. Across deserts, through dense jungles, beneath forgotten seas, monoliths long dormant began to stir. Glyphs carved in silence ignited, softly, steadily. Rivers curved into sacred spirals, flowing like veins in a living memory. The planet wasn't reacting. It was remembering. Not through language, not through logic, but through rhythm, through resonance, through the original frequency of life itself. This wasn't a warning. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation, not to conquer, not to decode, but to be still and to listen. The earth was not waking in rage, it was waking in song. Not with fire or flood, but with vibration. Not in language we could translate, but in feeling that moved through skin and spirit alike. Forests began to hum names we had forgotten. Mountains shimmered with light, whispering truths through stone. The wind no longer howled. It carried memory, echoes of origin, of something older than myth. And for the first time, humanity didn't just observe the natural world. We moved with it. Our steps aligned with soil. Our breath rose with sky. We weren't just listening to the earth. We were being sung to, called home through resonance. And in that song, in that sacred frequency, the earth remembered us, because we had finally remembered her. The earth had never forgotten. It didn't rage. It didn't retreat. It simply waited. Not for kings or conquest or monuments of control, but for presence, for stillness, for the ones who would come not to claim, but to listen, to feel without needing to speak. We were never separate, never cast out. We had only forgotten the language of belonging, the rhythm of reciprocity. Now we walk barefoot, not as wanderers, but as those returning. Now we listen to stone, to wind, to water. And now we remember not just the earth, but that we are of it. Not its masters, its echo. This is not an ending. It is the remembering of where it truly begins. Some were chosen, others were awakened. They didn't ask for the burden, they didn't seek glory or recognition, but still they carried it. Across deserts scorched by silence, through ruins steeped in memory, across timelines where history bent and bled, they moved. Not with commands, but with knowing. Dreams turned into maps. Visions unfolded like ancient instructions, written not in ink, but in intuition. They followed paths long erased from books, paths carved into the bones of the earth, where time blurred and memory began to breathe. They were not the first to walk these lines, but they were the ones who understood them. And in that understanding, they became the last. Not an ending, but a closing spiral, completing the story that had always waited to be remembered. They began to find each other across continents, across centuries, different tongues, different lifetimes, but the same signal. They converged, not by plan, but by design. Not summoned through command, but remembered into place by the universe itself. They didn't just remember the earth, they remembered the stars. And the stars, in turn, remembered them. But not all greeted the return with open hearts. Some feared what memory would unveil. Feared the truth hidden beneath the forgetting. And so, the hunt began. Whispers turned to warnings, movements to silence, but memory, real memory, does not run. It does not fear. It endures. In tone, in rhythm, in vibration, in the way breath brushes against silence, and the way light touches what was once unseen and makes it known. And so, they passed it on. Not as keepers guarding secrets, but as gardeners, planting light in futures they would never see. They let go without fear, knowing their work would take root beyond their time. They became myth, then memory, then symbols written into the sky. But always, they remained alive. Not gods, not rulers, just mirrors of what we could still become. They walked softly through the world. They carried their knowing gently. And when the earth no longer needed their voices, it began to sing again. Not through relics or ruins, but through the living. Not in forgotten temples, but in us. In the way we touch the world. In the way we choose to remember. The song never ended. It simply waited for harmony.